Basically, EVs need to be treated as a priority sector. Priority sector lending needs to be thrashed out for EVs.
Forget rural areas, even tier 2 towns, it doesn't exist. It's not there. Different states look at EV connections or the ability to facilitate EV infrastructure providers very, very differently, depending on their availability of land, their availability of power. Center can only give guidelines. And unless and until we focus on the implementation of those policies, the actual execution part, that awareness is absolutely non-existent.
Hello and welcome to the Secretariat. Well, we know how pollution is a favorite topic of ours. The first thing we do in the morning is to check the AQI level. Well, there are several steps which are being undertaken. The government has been taking several steps. One of them, of course, is the focus on EVs. But where are we really on EV rollout? It's been a topic. It's been one area which the government has been very passionately focusing on following up. But where are we really on the rollout of EVs? As we know, there are many infrastructure problems. We've come a long way, yet we need to do a lot more to ensure that EVs do become a reality on Indian roads. Well, today we have the industry stalwarts to discuss with the Secretariat on the issues that really bother on the ground. Let's start with you, Vivek. What do you feel has been done so far? What are the issues which are plaguing the industry?
So I think in terms of EV penetration, I think we are on the right track. We focused on the two vehicle segments, which is two-wheelers and three-wheelers. And if you look at the population of two-wheelers and three-wheelers, this is approximately 80% of the entire vehicle segment, right? So we have chosen those segments purposely, and we have achieved a relatively good penetration. Three-wheelers, we see a penetration which is almost 50% now. And two-wheeler already crossed the inflection point, which is more than 7% penetration. And I think the second thing which we have done very judiciously was focusing on the vehicle segments, which are, in terms of CO2 emissions are very high. So we have now started focusing on the N3 segment of commercial trucks. Though the population of those vehicles is only 3 to 4% of the entire vehicle segment, but with government coming out with subsidies, so we have trying to address that segment, which actually contributes to approximately 40 to 50% of the CO2 emissions, right? So I think in terms of deciding that which vehicle segments we need to choose in terms of EV adoption, we are on the right path. The government policies are also in place. There are challenges even related to having dedicated industrial hubs for EVs, right? So that is what is my call on the present status on EVs. Yeah.
Would you like to throw light on the issues that need to be resolved immediately?
So I represent Yuma Energy. Yuma is one of the leading battery swapping companies in the country. If you look at it from the perspective of EV adoption, battery swapping is a game changer because it takes away the upfront cost. It gives zero downtime, and it is very, very beneficial for commercial EVs where most of your pollution or emissions are coming from. There are 2 or 3 challenges that we typically face in this. It's a capex-heavy business. So deploying that kind of capex, I would say there's no prioritization or priority lending that is available to a capex-heavy industry, which is, by the way, trying to push for EV adoption in the country. That doesn't exist.
When you talk of bank loans and...
Yeah, the need is to take this or treat this as a priority sector, reduce or give us preferential rates, but that doesn't exist. The GST rates we have been seeing that there have been multiple times revisions have happened over the last couple of years. However, this sector, when it comes to battery swapping, has not seen any changes. In fact, even today, almost 50% of your charging infrastructure as well as batteries, the components are imported from China. And there also you're paying import duties, there's custom clearance timelines, all of that.
Right, we'll come back to that. Pawandeep, would you like to throw light on the issues that you've been facing?
So I represent Attero Recycling, which is the largest e-waste recycler and most advanced lithium-ion recycler in the world. If you foresee, these metals come from locations like Argentina, which is world's lowest water generating area and has a scarcity, the driest area. So lithium is produced over there. The lithium, to extract 1 ton of lithium, you require 500k gallons of water, which is a very, very economical and geopolitical issue as on date, whereas cobalt, which comes from the other locations, has a lot of terrorist regimes which are controlling it and child
That
labor.
apart, of course, climate issues, because
Yeah.
water consumption itself is an issue in
Yes.
today's day and age.
So what we foresee is, as the PLI scheme of 15,000 crore has been approved by the government to set up technical solutions to recycle these batteries in an environment friendly manner, Attero has been a step ahead. We already have the processes to recycling. As on date, the ecosystem doesn't exist in India. Again, we have to move this material out of India to precursors to further work out and make a new product out of it.
And that obviously increases costs.
That increases cost. It's a issue on the country because the GDP increases. Firstly, we are importing this material. If we do not refine it themselves in the country, then we are again sending the critical metals out of the country, which becomes a cost parameter for the country itself. If you foresee, just a week back, there has been a notification by CPCB stating that no black mass. Black mass is an intermediate product which is extracted from the batteries. So most of the recyclers who are there in India, they are mechanical recyclers. That is a R1 recycler. If we talk about R4 recycler, lithium-ion battery is a very complex material to recycle because there are number of metals in it, and it's a fire hazard situation which arises if you scrap them. These mechanical recyclers only fulfill the initial level where they are able to extract copper and aluminium, and subsequently the critical metals material, which is black mass, is exported out of
So
the country.
recycling is a major issue.
Recycling, the solutions are there. The implementation of the notification or the rules like EPR and all those battery waste management rules has to be done in a more rigorous manner, and solutions have to be worked out on those fronts. Thank you.
Rahil, your initial thoughts.
I'm representing Kazam, so we're looking at, we're actually at the forefront of building a better infra. At least that's what we're trying day on day. We've set roughly about 100,000 chargers across India as of date. So that's a big plus from last year where we were at 50,000. So this is just an attempt by players like us to see if the end user can get a better infrastructure to use these vehicles, right? One of the few challenges we faced was deploying this infra. Second is not the implementation part of it, but more on the post-sales part of it. So a customer can buy an EV car. He's paying a markup first up for the same model, which is of a different, say, of a petrol model, right? Then he's paying another markup, knowing that he's going to pay another markup of about 7 to 8 lakhs, 30-40%, 7 years down the line, 8 years down the line on the battery, right? Despite that, they are being charged 18% for every charging session that they use. Ideally, it should be 5% if it's when you're buying an EV car, it's 5%. Like you and I will have to pay when we're buying that. But when you're recharging your battery or charging your battery, you're paying 18% GST, right? So there's a lot of still, I think the governments are still spitballing here, trying to understand what works best for an economy.
So the
of our
tax
scale.
issue has been a major concern, especially
From a usage standpoint,
Yeah.
yes, that's
Yeah.
correct. Because companies like us, we can build the infra, they can work on the batteries, but then again, the adoption is what it's all comes down to, right?
which is a big problem, which is not happening, right?
Which is
Because even today, if you see, it's just 5% or less than 5%
very true,
EVs.
Very true.
If you consider EVs as a total basket of the vehicles
Mhm.
that we see on Indian roads, it's just about 5%.
And that too,
Despite the push by the government.
Despite the subsidies, despite the GST cuts in purchasing the car and everything. But I think the reason why people are not actually going for an EV car, I think it's still that in case if they get stuck, they don't have a reprise, right? They have to depend on the company sending someone from God knows where to wherever they are. So I think that is a push that even manufacturer OEMs specifically OEMs should be working on. Metropolitans still have a lot of chargers.
Absolutely.
There are a few in Barakhamba as well. But cities like Lucknow or cities like Muradabad, where there's a lot of potential, a lot of capital.
So, if I may just interrupt, like
Sure.
what you said, if I'm a person with an EV, the first thought or the first concern that I would have is if I'm driving outside Delhi,
Precisely.
and if it's like a 400 kilometer,
Precisely.
where suppose something happens, suppose I need to recharge, I don't have a charging station.
Very true.
So that is one of the issues which has plagued the industry and the consumers, and
Very true.
probably that is one area which is keeping away people from really going in for an EV.
So I think that if we work on collaboratively with the government, I think that can really propel the adoption of EV cars, right? Because we can set the infra, he can work on the battery, right? They can do whatever it is that they're doing. But unless people are not going to buy it, which has to be technically enforced on them, right? As a law, that this is what we're heading on to. We're heading on to carbon neutralism in the next 10 years. And this is what we need our country's people to forefront us with, right? So these are a few things that I think we can probably shed some light on.
You spoke about the GST bit, the tax issue, and you said like even lending is because we've seen priority sector lending does get a lot of other benefits, I mean, for bank loans and things like that, it becomes much easier. What you said was interesting. The fact that EVs are not yet treated doesn't come under the priority sector lending. Can you just elaborate a bit on that?
So take for example, if I have to really make an impact on the emissions, my first focus would be commercial vehicles. Because those are the vehicles that are running all day. They're pretty much running 100, 120 kilometers a day. And that's what is contributing a lot to the emissions that we see around us. Now, to serve 30 to 40 bikes using battery swapping station, I would have to spend upwards of 10, 15 lakhs. If I am spending that kind of money just for 50 to 60 bikes, which I will anyways recover over 5 to 6 years, because that's when the adoption is going to kick in, I need to be incentivized today to deploy that kind of capex. The government today wants that all of the last mile connectivity, last mile, deliveries on Q-commerce, on food delivery, everything moves to EVs, which is absolutely beneficial. But to serve that level of volume, you'll need to invest at least 150 to 200 crores per single player in the industry. That kind of capex at 10 to 12% lending rates just doesn't make sense, which basically hampers the pace at which you're deploying capex. If you help the ecosystem by either reducing the rates, longer mortgage terms, or basically creating some sort of moratorium on the paybacks for the next, let's say the next 2 to 3 years, that benefits the industry a lot. And the second thing, obviously, is when you deploy all of this, you're paying your GST upfront, you're recovering over 8 years. So that's a lot of 18% working capital stuck.
Vivek, you spoke about the public transport piece.
Yeah.
And of course, the two-wheelers, the buses. Now, what exactly is happening outside the metros? Are these cities also, or are these towns in sync?
So I think if you look at, the way we have adapted EVs, so I think one segment which is still not, a priority segment even for the government is the personally owned cars, right? So, there is a lot of discussion about, there are reasons behind that. One reason is, or I will just give you an example. I mentioned two segments, two-wheeler and three-wheeler segment. Why the adoption is faster there? Because the government is giving upfront subsidy, whether it is FAME 2 or in terms of PM e-Drive, or the local RTO is also coming forward and giving some concessional rates. But if you compare prices of let's say a three-wheeler EV with the diesel or a CNG, it is just 30% higher, right? Even for a two-wheeler, it is between 35 to 40%. So that makes a very, a very good use case that I want to adapt EVs. I have to, pay 30-40% higher, but I'm going to get that money back in a couple of months because I'm saving a lot on, running those vehicles, right? In passenger cars, that multiplier is more than 2. It is between 2.5. If you actually have seen, the Tesla, which has been launched in India. So it is the prices are approximately between 65 to 70 lakhs.
Yes.
So that is not our priority as a country, because the population of personally owned cars in India is hardly 8%
I guess
of the entire
Tesla
segment.
is more like an aspiration value.
Yeah. But even the other players also, if you look at the local players also, though we have seen BYDs and Kias of the world coming to India, but that is still not, I would say, a priority for the country and for the government also. Government is very clear: two-wheelers, three-wheelers within the city applications, where you don't even need, I would say, the standardized charging or the fast charging, which is CCS2, GB by T or CHAdeMO, because these can be charged with portable chargers. You just need a 16 ampere charger and just charge it, just to solve that problem, right? But the government is now very much focused on the highest category of trucks, which is for interstate movement, which I mentioned is N3
Which is a
categories.
positive development.
Positive developments, because they have seen that this is a segment which contributes to 45 to 50% of the CO2 emissions. So let us have 20-25 trucks running there, build a charging infra, and then building a use case. But I think we are still far away where actually we can think of getting a cargo from Maharashtra to Delhi.
But when you say the push is there, but at the same time, considering today's geopolitical, geoeconomic situation, it has never been this much of a concern, maybe a few years earlier. Now, critical minerals is one, aspect which is required when you talk of EVs, and that typically comes from outside. We have to import that. How would you see this panning out in the near future?
See, the raw material, we understand that recycling lithium-ion batteries is quite a technical aspect, and the technical aspect has to be developed. With the government support which is coming in the form of PLI schemes, where they are supporting to invest into these aspects, and the recyclers can contribute where they are able to refine these metals and bring them back into the circular economy. So what is happening? One aspect is the circular economy. Other aspect is the low carbon footprint. The recycling has to be in an environment friendly manner. We are not only limited to the recycling of the lithium ion batteries. A battery compromises of multiple other products like copper, products like BMS, which is considered as a printed circuit board. It has to be recycled under the e-waste regulation. And the other cable wires, harnesses, as you understand, the copper has been increasing on a regular pace, the price of copper, virgin mines. So we are more of an urban miners. Urban miners help on extracting these metals out of the scrap and bringing back into the circular economy. So we should be, as government is promoting, there should be more technical and R&D which should be done on these aspects. And there has to be more development of the circularity, sustainability, and internal consumption of these metals domestically. For that, the entire ecosystem, from the manufacturing of cell and subsequently to the end of refinement of these metals and bringing them back into the circular economy, has to be developed. So there are multiple aspects which needs to be looked in. As there are new cell manufacturers which are coming in the Indian industry, there has to be precursor support which needs to be provided by the government, where the GST rebates to be given to the recycling industry also. We also, as on date, pay 18% GST for procuring this feedstock. So that gives a lot of capital investment happens on this aspect.
If you see, we are already at a stage where we don't require these rare earth magnets in our motors. We are building alternate technologies. We are building, the synchronous reluctance motors. We are, building the freight motors also, which are bit,
But
heavier, lower in efficiency.
What are the cost implications when you use these?
It is lower in terms of cost.
Oh, okay.
But it is, heavier in terms of weight. So it actually brings your the payload capacity down, right? It is a bit less efficient as compared to a rare earth magnets. But see, as an OEM, when I am committed to my customers, I am committed to my financiers, to my investors. So there is no option for me to look back or to be dependent on, other countries to, sustain that supply chain. That is why it is very important. But few problems we have solved. very hopeful that, once we get, the ease of getting critical, metals for batteries also. So we are going to solve that problem as well.
So we can go on and on and on this, but thank you so much. So the main points that have come up, that have emerged, are these. Basically, EVs need to be treated as a priority sector. Priority sector lending needs to be thrashed out for EVs, to promote EVs. Implementation of PME drive, the guidelines are there, but awareness and implementation continue to be a challenge. Recycling of batteries, that's another issue which needs to be really looked at. And of course, tax rationalization. These are the main issues which have emerged and which the government really needs to focus on to promote EVs in a better manner. Thank you so much. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time. Thank you.